Let us start the session. So, if you remember last week, last Wednesday itself, we were talking about certain category of AI problems which are referred to as constraint satisfaction problems. These we are learning within reach with the state space search problems, but the way these problems are defined is a bit different. And the reason why it is different, somebody is getting in. Okay, yeah. I hope my voice is audible and the screen is also visible. I'm showing some slides, they are visible now. Yeah, fine. So, the thing that I was telling you right now was constraint satisfaction problems are alike state space search problems, but they have their own place in the whole AI problem category. Why they have their own place? The reason behind that is there on this slide. The standard search problems, we consider a state of the problem as a black box. That is, we do not manipulate the state and we do not have our solution build upon manipulation of the variables that compose the state into. Okay, so that's the first and foremost difference between a standard search problem or state space search problem with CSP. The second thing is that the goal test in CSP is totally different than the other problems that we already saw. Okay, there we matched it against the state that we knew was going to be the final state, whether a particular state matches with that. So that was kind of a finding match between a given state and a goal state. That is what we tried to do. And whenever that match was found, the goal test was said to be passed. Otherwise, it was said to be failed in terms of state space search, because we were trying to reach to the goal node. Here in CSP, on the other hand, what we were doing was we were checking whether a particular state follows certain set of constraints, and if the state follows those constraints, then we say that the goal test is passed by the given state, and otherwise the state fails the goal test. So that's another difference between a standard search problem and a CSP problem. Okay, there are almost two three more differences that we will be exploring throughout the set of lectures that we have on the CSP, but these two are the major ones which you need to keep in mind when you are actually representing a CSP problem. And that's the reason the representation of CSP problem is also a bit different in standard search problem or state space search. I should actually call it state space search. The slides are calling it standard, but it is state space search problem. We needed to define 5 things in order to be able to solve the problem and represent and solve the problem. Those were the initial state, the state representation followed us to give initial state, goal test, then the transition model. Before that, we should also know the actions, which are valid actions, and then we should know finally the goal test. So these were the things that were necessary to represent a problem or a state space representation. But when I try to represent a CSP, apart from the usual 5 things that we require to represent for state space search, since there is importance given to the constraints and important to given to the formulation of the state, okay, we need to add few more vocabulary in order to be able to represent this CSP problem. So whenever I try to represent a CSP problem, there is some formal representation that I need to add to the existing 5 things, because those existing 5 things let us find a node in a state space. CSP will be also doing finding a node in a state space, but we'll try to achieve it with some added specific or niche information that the CSP definition provides us, and that is related to which variables composes the state, what domains the variables have, and how I formulate the goal test. That is how these variables are constrained or are impose certain constraint on. Okay, so these 3 things are very important in the definition of CSP. Which are the variables that form the state? Okay, then what domain each of these variables have, and in general, the problems that we are going to look at in this particular syllabus, they all have fixed domain. So every variable will have same values with respect to the domain. Okay. The next thing that we need to understand is, once I know the state variable, once I know the domain that the variables have, the third important criteria is to figure out or find out what are the constraints and what type of constraints are posed on the variables. Are they constrained on a single variable, or they posed on multiple variables at a time? Okay, how the variables are participating in the constraint, that is also important when we are defining a CSP. So let us now shift our focus with this discussion to three different CSP problems. We already looked at one of the problem, which is called as graph coloring problem. The definition of it we looked at. Second problem that we are going to look at today, which is also categorized as CSP, or constraint satisfaction problem, which is called as crypt arithmetic problem. And the third problem is n-Queen's problem. We already have known to the definition of n-Queen's problem. We saw what is graph coloring problems definition is last week. Today we'll begin with talking about what is a crypt arithmetic problem and why this name crypt and arithmetic coming together in that problem. So we'll just first focus on the definition of crypt arithmetic problem, then we'll come back to graph coloring and how it is represented, what could be the solutions, how we reach the solution, etc. So now we are looking at a problem which is called as crypt arithmetic. It is actually a single word, crypt arithmetic problem. While typing in over there, I differentiated it into two parts, crypt and arithmetic. So the crypt part is encryption. It actually talks about an encryption, and arithmetic is encrypting certain arithmetic. So any arithmetic operation, if I'm encrypting it using some different representation, that will be referred to as a crypt arithmetic problem. So in front of you, there are a lot of things there. Out of that, the crypt arithmetic problem is the definition of, or the crypt arithmetic problem itself is this one. So this is an instance of a crypt arithmetic problem. What we have here is, we have a arithmetic operation on two numbers. So this is one number n1 that I'm adding to another number called as n2, and result I'm getting of that addition is r1. Maybe this is how any crypt arithmetic problem would look like. There would be certain operands on which certain operator, especially an arithmetic operator, is applied, and you get a result out of it. But the catch here in this problem is that all the operands as well as the resultant, they are encrypted form. They are in encrypted form. So this particular instance of crypt arithmetic problem has two 3-digit numbers respectively being added together to obtain a 4-digit number. The numbers which are 3-digit, they are encrypted as TWO. So they are encrypted with same cipher, TWO, TWO. So I have two cipher 3-digit numbers, TWO, TWO, which are added, since this addition symbol is there, to get a 4-digit cipher text number output, or result I should say, FOUR. Okay, where these alphabets, capital alphabets, are representing a digit from 0 to 9. This is what this particular problem is. So what we need to solve here, we need to figure out which two numbers are added and what resultant we obtain. In a way, we need to figure out what is the value of T, W, O, F, U, and R. So we want to find out values of individually T, W, O, F, and R. So these 5 values we need to figure out. So that's the what you can say, that's the mathematical problem that we have here, which is nothing but a crypt arithmetic problem instance. Why I'm calling this instance? Because there are a lot of such problems that you can build, and then you can solve them as well. Okay, so one classic problem that many text you'll find is send plus more equals money. This is another example of crypt arithmetic problem. Here, two 4-digit numbers are added to get a 5-digit number as a result. So it's not necessary always you have same digit numbers added together to get a different digit output or one increased digit output. It's not like that. Just two examples that I showed you, they were having this construction. So ultimately, what is a cryptarithmetic problem? It's a arithmetic problem which is encoded into, or which is encrypted to be represented as addition of two words or multiple words rather, not necessarily again an addition, represented as an arithmetic on certain operands, okay, to obtain a resultant where the operands and the result are represented using encryption. They are in encrypted form. So I have two ciphers here in this instance, which are represented by three digits T, W, and O, three characters, I should say, T, W, and O. They are added. So the operation that I'm performing is addition, and the resultant is FOUR4. So this is what the problem is. So the rectangle that, sorry, that's not looking like a rectangle. Just draw a nice rectangle. So this is the instance problem of cryptarithmetic that we have on this slide. So slide has a lot of things, as I told you already. The slide below this here, it tells you what are the variables in this problem. Okay. It also tells you what is the domain each variable has value from. Okay. And what different kinds of constraints this problem has. Okay. So this is what these three things represent. And